Good morning. Thank you very much, Karen, for your kind words. And thank you very much to all the organizers for inviting me. I'm really happy, and it has been really interesting. Yesterday left me with a lot of ideas and inspiration. So, well, as Karen mentioned, I'm an anthropologist, and I'm going to share you my experience with the educational sector. So we will think about what is building local capacity, local governance from this educational stand. So what I'm going to show you is part of the work that we have developed during 8 years, a collective group. We are an interdisciplinary group, all of us colleagues from the Universidad Veracruzana. And so our work relates with what is called intercultural approach, and right now it's being adopted in different areas in governance and in educational sector, or in urban and rural areas in Europe, in the United States, and in Latin America. And it stands for first the learning that is rooted in one's own culture, language, values, worldview, and systems of knowledge, so that it is languages. And at the base of this, what is the foundation is what is in Spanish called diálogo de saberes, that's knowledge exchange. And it means the encounters, exchange of different types of knowledge, different types of view, of perceiving. So from there, the possibility of constructing or reconstructing new ways of knowledge. So this is the approach, and it has been adopted within the educational sector and in Latin America, with a special emphasis in indigenous contexts. And in Latin America, we have seen that since 20 years ago, the emergence of what is intercultural education is growing, and it started in very different ways in different countries. In Mexico and in Peru, it started from the government initiatives and academics, people that were thinking about this since a long time ago. In Mexico, it started even from the 30s with the policies really trying to integrate indigenous people into the policy making and into the country. And in other countries, like in Bolivia and Ecuador, it starts from direct demands of indigenous people asking to have rights and to have access to education. So it has developed in different ways, but it's very growing, and it's now adopted in the higher education, undergraduate educational, and in intercultural universities in different places. So at the core of this is the aim of strengthening people, local capacities, youth, the capacities of youth to interact, to facilitate dialogue with other different stakeholders, and at the end to strengthen their own local organizations and governance. So, well, within the indigenous context, it's important because it's linguistically and culturally relevant. So it gives the weight in how people is learning with their own language in their own ways, in the family and with the rural with their families and communities. Is useful for the students in current and future life, and it develops, well, it tends to develop the skills to facilitate dialogue with different knowledge and values. So in Mexico, I would like to bring this discussion a little bit and inspire also what I heard yesterday. What is the relevance of education, like intercultural education, when we talk about conservation? And well, in Mexico, some studies have revealed that the main areas of biodiversity are settled by indigenous groups for a long time ago, centuries ago. And that means that they have developed a knowledge and an understanding of the nature and the environment where they have been living. And Well, these are the most, as I'm telling you, the most conserved areas in Mexico. And as you can see in the map, it's mostly in the tropical areas, in the south of Mexico, tropical areas. And well, about 15% of the population is indigenous. And there are 62 languages spoken, different ethnic languages spoken in Mexico. And well, another important thing to bring in this discussion is that most of these lands are in hands of people in what is called ejidos. That's an ownership that is granted to indigenous areas or rural people, and that is a communal type of land tenure. So why it has been important in terms of local transmission, the role of these intercultural universities. Yesterday we heard from different speakers the major trend that is occurring in Latin America with migration and with the movement of large number of people from urban areas from rural areas to urban areas. And well, it is expected that by 2030 in Latin America, which is where that is a region in the world where we see more this big movement, 90% of the population will be living in cities. And what does that mean for knowledge transmission in rural areas? It means, in the case of Mexico, we have talked with people and we have recorded testimonies and lives, stories of people that has come to work, for example, here to the United States and go back to Mexico. And what they tell us is that they live exactly during the time when their children can learn how to grow, for example, how to cultivate in the milpa, the traditional system for maize cultivation in many places of Mexico, and it's a time when they learn how to gather and all the resources and the knowledge that involves the management of their resources. So what is going on is that the kids or the youngs, when they reach the age of their youth, they don't have anymore these knowledge and these tools. And well, another aspect is that the way in which at the primary and the secondary school, the curricula is really done or prepared or organized at national level, and is completely decontextualized or uprooted from the areas where students are studying. So they don't learn about their history, their values, and their language is not even, sometimes it's even forbidden to talk their language in their classroom. So that means that the intercultural education at higher school gives really a space and option and opens a door for the continuation of learning in terms of how people live in rural areas and about how they manage the resources. Young people it also enables at the end of what the intercultural education aims is that to empower youth to have a stand and to have a position within the decision making within their communities, and at the end maybe in another level. So I'm going now to talk about what we are doing. In Mexico, we have at this moment 20 intercultural universities in different states. And here is Veracruz, this white state here. And in the state of Veracruz, we have the Universidad Intercultural, Veracruzana Intercultural, that it has 4 campuses in the 4 main ethnic regions of the state. And we work here in the Sierra de Songolica, where one of these campuses is based. And most of the universities, or all the universities except our university, our Intercultural University, are part of the state directly from the state governments and are ruled from the National Intercultural Program. In our case, the intercultural program is within the major University of Veracruz. So that gives the opportunity to teachers like me to integrate ourselves into this, into the work they are doing in rural areas, in these areas. Okay, so the Sierra de Songolica is a mountainous area, and the physiography is quite accidental. It's karstic, and it has very steep slopes, very deep valleys, and we also have, like in Florida, streams that suddenly disappear and then they start their way in another place. And it's a big area. It has 14 municipalities, and within Mexico is one of the largest and most important Nahua settlements. And it's a population of 60,000, and 80% of the people speaks Nahuatl. And within the Sierra de Songolica, we can see differences in the climatic conditions and type of vegetation, starting from the upper areas, higher elevation areas with pine forest, the middle one with especially cloud forest, and the lower one with semi-deciduous forest. And one important aspect here is that most of the land is privately owned, and what we have seen in terms of landscape and land use changes mainly in the region through census and through talking with people is the introduction of timber species by government programs. This is part of a worldwide interest on reforestation, and this has brought changes. And on one side, people is appreciating this because it, as you can see here, it brings, as you can see here from the report, the reforestation in terms of hectares has really increased, and it's visible in the landscape. And this has bring, as I was talking, two different kind of scenarios. One, the recovery of some environmental services with these timber trees being grown in some areas which were deforested or which are in the more steep places. But on the other hand, also the risk or the tension of competition of land uses with agricultural land use, especially the maize, production, and also with the forest itself. So this is the scenario of what is going on now in terms of land uses in Veracruz, in Sierra de Songolica. So when we start to talk with people about the interest and about with the students, together with different stakeholders in the Sierra de Songolica, one of the main things they have pointed out is this issue about the reforestation. On one hand, the need of technical information, because the programs, they enable the people to grow the trees, but there's no really follow-up on how to maintain them and how to improve the management techniques. And also, there's this need of discussing with the students about other activities related with forest. So at the moment, this is a kind of landscape that you can see in the Sierra de Songolica. And as I mentioned, is privately owned and very fragmented. The land is from, one family can own from 1 to 2 parcels, but they are at most of 1 hectare to 2 hectares. So it's really fragmented, and in those spaces, they are growing maize, as you can see here. They have forest patches. They also have these trees of the reforestation planning growing in some places as borders in parcels. and also in little patches. So you can see a very intensified use of the landscape. And well, there's a strong connection with all the forest agroforestry resources that are of daily use, and like the preparation of charcoal, the poles for construction, handicrafts which are decorated with plants that come from forest and agroforestry parcels. The food that also comes from gathering from the forest and the agricultural activities, especially the maize. And one very important aspect is the spiritual practices and values people give. And in this area, for example, when they start to crop, they will always offer to the land for good harvests. So within this, as I mentioned, we identify together with students and other stakeholders what were the worries and what they wanted to do and how we could engage in this process through our learning approach, a learning teaching approach that I mentioned is from the intercultural approach. So we have been able to work in different ways, and we have been able to work narratives and maps. We have also promoted the preparation of videos done by the students, and we also have a participatory monitoring and a forest management workshop. The most important thing to describe here and to tell you here is that even the major concern of people now is more about the techniques. We start from the techniques, but we extend these to discussions that are not out of techniques. Technical management practices are part of a political and an economic and social context. So that in that way we have been discussing many other aspects that are important to know then why they are doing what they are doing, and to understand more the processes. So I'm going to, within these activities that we have been carrying for 8 years, there are three main aspects that I would like to highlight here, and it's the importance of having a regional context of where the Sierra de Songolica is. So in the different activities that we have been carrying out, we put a lot of emphasis on this. Where is the Sierra de Songolica? Which are the resources? And to have a perception of the importance of this Sierra within a larger area. It is neighboring big cities, industrial cities, so the water from the Sierra de Songolica supplies the water to these cities. And when we have these classes and we have discussions with students and with other stakeholders in Sierra de Songolica, they recognize this, and we have heard even saying some farmers like, well, I will not fear anymore to go to the city because now I know that they need me because the water comes from this region, and they didn't know about this connection before. And another thing that we want to highlight is the importance of understanding and of recovering the history, local regional history. Before the reforestation process started, the Sierra de Songolica was deforested by illegal loggers, and there were riots in the 60s, 70s, and a lot of movement, collective action grown from the people in the Sierra de Songolica to recover the control over these resources. Although it's important, people, students, they don't know about this. When they understand about it as youngsters, they realize the capacity they can have then to continue working for their land and for their resources. And another aspect is the innovation. As I was mentioning, intercultural approach enables this encounter of knowledges and the creation of new knowledge based on the needs. And well, in this case specifically, because of I mentioned that the government is bringing specifically some species, but focus on timber production, and the people is interested on recovering and also on introducing native tree species, which are more important and which have more uses for their own, but they don't know sometimes how to germinate them, how to grow them in nurseries. So in this way, we are collaborating. Another aspect is that some of the technological aspects of the management of the trees, like for example, we have realized that people don't do clearings because they think that what is the reason to fell a tree if you are not going to use it? So it's completely another way of understanding, and we can see here the clash of understanding from the government programs and what people is used to do with the resources. So at the end, we have this bigger discussion about territory that enables us, together with the students and other stakeholders, to understand what is the territory, not just as a productive type of landscape, but also as the importance of the sense of place and of identity and of being part of one area and of one historical process. So just to grab the ideas, well, our work has focused mainly on reaching and helping students to have communication with within their own region, with other villages, and to work in collaboration. And as I mentioned before, students, youth especially, are marginalized from having educational options. So this brings one option. And I think that in the present context in Mexico, it's really, if we think about deep social transformations, we have to work with youth. And I think that probably this is one of the ways. And well, I want to introduce you my team. I told you that this is a collaborative work, and we have been able to work with funds and with the support of People and Plants organization and with the Overbrook Foundation. Thank you very much.